Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our morning coffee time for Thursday, August the 6th. How is everyone this morning? I see the sun is not shining in my hometown of Portland, Oregon. And yes, it can rain there, even in August. I remember settling into life in Thailand and how strange it felt to be living in a place where you could have a whole season where you could confidently expect not to see rain, and how strange that and unnatural that seemed, having grown up in the Pacific Northwest. They have what they call the dry season. And it's not really a season. They have three traditional seasons in Thailand, like the rainy season and the cold season. But sometimes we call the cold season the dry season because it doesn't rain. And for somebody who grew up in the Northwest, it doesn't seem all that cold, but it does seem dry. Okay, well, thanks for the feedback, everybody. I guess everything is looking and sounding good. So today being Thursday, tomorrow is going to be the last day for a little bit that we have morning and evenings chanting and meditation streams. And it'd be the last Friday morning coffee time for the rest of August. I'll be pulling back and doing a bit more retreat, enjoying a little solitude for a while. So you'll have the weekend off, and I'll be back on Monday, though. So, and then every subsequent Monday until the end of August. And then September 1st, I'll resume some daily live streams. So that gave me a chance to rebuild some things, set up some new systems and tests, and have a couple suggestions. One, the mundane worldly suggestion is that if you're not subscribed, you might do that. Go to our YouTube channel and look for the big red subscribe button. And this seems to be a standard on YouTube, people asking people to subscribe. I will normally refrain from such things. I won't ask you to like and subscribe and all this stuff. But it's a good way to keep track of the channel. And then if you are subscribed, you can click a little bell next to the subscribe button, the notification bell. And they have personalized and they have all. And if you're signed into a Google account and you have that notification thing set, you may get a notification when I go live or there's a new video up. And there's a backlog of some stuff that I want to be editing and putting up on the channel. And also I'm going to be doing some testing and setting up a little bit different workflow. So I might do some live streams still over the month, but I'm not committing to some schedule. So if you want to maybe catch those, you might turn on those notifications. So that is my reason for mentioning it. Several people sent me some feedback and appreciation, just letting me know how they've been and how they've been using this time and opportunity of having a daily connection with a monk of our tradition live on the internet with a chance to interact and hear some reflections and questions and answers. And on one level, it kind of pulls at my heartstrings a bit to hear how meaningful it is for some people and how it anchors people or motivates them or fits into their morning routine or daily routine in a positive way. So I'm happy to hear that for a few people, I'm adding some critical mass to get them up and out of bed. So that makes me happy. So my suggestion is, there'll be a break Saturday, Sunday. I'll be back on Monday, and we'll meet here again each Monday for August. But my suggestion is, if you do find this positive, think of a strategy of how you are going to make a commitment to follow up on that momentum for the rest of the month, where I'm not on here and we don't have this gathering every day. You don't get to meet all your friends in the chat each and every day, just once a week. So maybe by tomorrow, think of how you're going to honor what it is that you find useful there, and come up with a strategy and make a clear commitment to yourself. It's hard to be mindful and hold yourself accountable if you don't have a clear commitment. So examples of what might be a skillful, clear commitment is do the same thing, get up at the same time, and use this same time to nurture this part of your life. So maybe pick up a collection of the suttas and dedicate the time to a half hour of reading sutta reflections. Like you might, if you've never gone through the Dhammapada, you might pick up a copy of the Dhammapada. And by the way, Sumana, who's here in the chat this morning, I got your offering of a new Dhammapada translation from Gil Fronsdale, as well as a copy of Bloom. So thank you very much for that. Or you might listen to Dhamma as well. But habits are all too easy to lose and break. So, if you found some benefit in this, find some way to honor what's skillful and useful, and make a clear commitment to yourself to continue that sort of momentum. And there's lots of fresh content these days being put out there on the internet from many people, but the stuff I'm especially aware of and attuned to is some of the regular content that's being put out by monks in our tradition. Also, I don't know if she's here this morning, but Moria wrote me and was creating a little Zoom breakout group. And in the past, there's several people connected with the Hermitage that have a morning meditation chanting session once a week as well. So things like that can happen. People can connect with each other in the chat. So this, this is these are important skills too. I mean, one needs to learn to be very self-reliant. The word of another, Kalyana, Mitta, friendship, sangha, is all very important. But ultimately, we do have to grow our capacity to be responsible for ourselves and our own practice. I remember talking with Lumpur Pasano one time about his approach and philosophy to training monks. And sometimes, especially in a large monastery, you see people that go through difficult times and they're struggling with their practice. And I remember asking him one time why it is that he seemed to change the level of admonishment or interventionist approaches. My perception was when I first ordained and trained with him in Thailand, he was much quicker to admonish somebody for not following the monastery protocols or rules, or not showing up to morning meditation on time, and sometimes could be very strong admonishment. And then living with him in California at a Baigiri monastery, he seemed to have a softer touch. And I remember asking him about this one time and what his thinking was behind that. And, he said a few things, but chief amongst them was, that he just learned that people need to learn for themselves and train themselves. And there's only so much that you can do for people. One, it's not a very fun job, but the main thing is he learned over the years that it just didn't work to constantly be disciplining or admonishing people. And I remember seeing this in some very profound ways. Monks that are ordained at the monastery in Thailand in particular, which had a very disciplined schedule and routine, after ordaining and training for several years and then going off to practice on their own in different situations, sometimes just went off the rails, sometimes in spectacular ways. And I remember as a young monk seeing other monks 5, 6, 7, 8 years in the robes, and very nice people, very sincere and very good practitioners, even disrobing. And showing evidence of not being able to, having been over reliant on the atmosphere and the supports of living in a monastery. So, of course, there is a balance. I mean, the Buddha encourages spiritual friendship and drawing near teachers and seeking admonishment and feedback from teachers and the wise and one's peers. But the overarching message, I think, that one finds in the Buddhist teachings and the suttas is that ultimately one does need to be responsible for oneself. So favorable conditions and all the supports that we can muster are important, and they're not to be discouraged whatsoever, but we have to make sure that we're making good on it. It's kind of like if you take out a loan to sort of start a business or something. It's like that might be necessary, but you're living on borrowed time, and you got to develop the business and develop the conditions to get out of that situation. And the same is true for our practice. And we really have to watch out for this and get beyond this tendency to want the external conditions to align, or for others to really sort out where it is that we're making mistakes that lead to unskillfulness and future suffering. There was a question about reading as opposed to meditating that was asked yesterday, and I remember as a young monk sort of examining sort of that same dilemma of finding myself kind of going back to the books, searching for answers and searching for some insight or quick fix. And while it's not wrong, it's like some of it can be a little bit unbalanced if it's fueled by just this desire for some external sort of fix. It's like a turning away from the challenge of self-reliance and, full responsibility for cultivating one's practice. And I can see that tendency, even today, start to kind of creep into the mind sometimes after years of practicing and trying to create a kind of inner reliance. You look to other teachings, other times, other conditions. We're kind of deferring, confronting where we are in the present moment, and like engaging our own inner resourcefulness to generate the faith, the energy, the motivation, the curiosity and creativity that it takes really to keep the practice alive and to sort out what our next steps are and how we might adjust and apply ourselves to deepen our practice of Dhamma. And Ajahn Chah's teachings are kind of rich with this, like both explicitly in some of the translations, you see this encouragement to develop your own skillful means and to tap into your own capacity to know for oneself and to reflect on Dhamma in a very sincere way, as opposed to just going through the rituals or taking on some sort of dogma. It has to go beyond views and opinions and belief at some point to really reach the heart of the matter. Also, there's lots of stories of him challenging and testing his students and disciples to draw on their own kind of inner resourcefulness. And in the schedule of the monastery, he would oftentimes change things up. There'd be times where there's a lot of group practice, and then there's times where there's a lot of solitary practice. And my take is part of his reasoning is to help give people the space and also highlight sort of where their strengths and weaknesses were and learn not to be overly reliant on the teacher and the schedule to develop these qualities that I'm reflecting on this morning. And one needs to know for oneself, like depending where you're at any given moment in your spiritual life and in your path practice, maybe where to kind of strike that balance of turning to external supports, environmental supports, and then taking a break from that to sort of check where your own inner resource is. So it's a little kind of just reflection on the challenge of practice. See if I can catch up on the chat here a little bit. I did see something, like I mentioned breakout groups, and I saw Moria posted something in here. Hopefully it came to people's attention. Where are you, Moria? I think one of the innovations I'd like to figure out is how I could get some chat moderation or help with the chat feature. I need like a producer to help help me find and highlight. Here it is, finally. I don't know how I could do that with this technology without drafting one of the monks. Okay, well, people are interested in a Zoom Kalyana Mitta group. You can contact Moria at that email. She was thinking of having a small group, maybe up to 12 people. For images more. Could you say something about mundane right view and the path of the puttujana? Sometimes this seems like a journey of self-improvement that I will never measure up. Yeah, well, mundane right view is a component of right view. It differs from super mundane right view in the fact that in and of itself it's not liberating, but it's a set of beliefs or a belief structure that one picks up out of faith that the Buddha sort of affirms, both as being true and in alignment with reality, but maybe even more important, supportive of the cultivation of the Buddhist spiritual path. So the elements of that are an affirmation or a belief in the effectiveness of karma, so that it is true that the intentional quality that motivates thought, speech, and action bears results, so that thoughts, speech, and action motivated by unwholesome qualities of mind will, like as a law, create negative ramifications in profound ways that are hard to apprehend and discern for a normal mind. And the opposite. So thoughts, speech, and action motivated by skillful intentions, good intentions, will fruit in blessings and positive kind of conditions in a way that is difficult and hard to fathom for a normal mind. So an affirmation of karma, the law of karma, that there is mother and father, which is interpret it as there's a special karmic kind of relationship to one's parents, that there are spontaneously reborn beings. So a belief in the that there are other realms, higher realms and lower realms, and that the ethical conduct and the choices that we make in this life have a karmic momentum that connect one to future rebirth. So those are some of the chief elements of mundane right view, and of course then it differs from super mundane right view, which is the transformational understanding of the Four Noble Truths and the three characteristics, to put it shortly. So picking up as articles of faith, mundane right view is a positive and beneficial sort of thing, and it helps support one's orientation to life and practice in a way that supports movement towards the cultivation of skillful and wholesome dhammas, and the potential to develop super mundane right view. And until one develops super mundane right view, then one is a puttujana, which Ajahn Sudanto once translated in a very playful way. The puttujana is your ordinary thickie. So this is the person that lacks enlightenment, knowledge, and wisdom. So once one has attained one of the first stages of enlightenment, from Sotapanna upwards, your existence as a puttujana ends. One has what we might call transformational wisdom and insight that changes your relationship to the world and being. The last part of your question, sometimes it seems like a journey of self-improvement that I will never measure up. Well, yeah, that's what it's like to be a puttujana. It's like constantly stuck in framing things in me and mine and self and various conceptions of I. And also stuck in the vacillations of faith and doubt, which is like an ebb and flow, until one reaches some sort of state of security where one is said to have gone beyond faith. And like that threshold is reached with also the attainment of the first stage of enlightenment. My encouragement is, don't take yourself too seriously. Short of being a sotapanna, there's a lot that we can do. We can really relax that habit of constantly framing things up through the view of the self, and relax this habit of me and mine. In some practical way, you need to believe in yourself, but you really can go beyond that and just do the work. Just deal with what's in front of you and live with as much skillfulness as possible, and cultivate the practice. It's all about just putting forth effort and planting seeds. And the more we're absorbed and focused and engaged in that endeavor, the less energy, I'd say, is even available to ruminate about these kind of self-conceptions. So if you think about it from the position of self, it's easy to feel like I'll never measure up. And there are times in practice where you have a little bit of insight, fresh insight into just to the immenseness of the hindrances and dukkha, and the practice seems overwhelming, and it can provoke this kind of doubt of like, how can I ever be free of this? Especially when you see just how pernicious it is and how all these very subtle forms of suffering thread their way through your conscious experience. But that's just merely another unskillful thought that needs to be kind of let go of, like framing it in that way. Again, it's like framed through self, and it's framed through notions of permanence and personality. And that's not helpful to sort of frame your experience in that way. You want to relax that, step back away from that habit. It evokes this memory of Ajahn Sudanto saying, "When I think about myself, I suffer," which I think is an encouragement not to think about yourself, at least not in that kind of way. Good morning, Eleanor. Sometimes I want to eat junk food, but I know it's not healthy. How should we approach our cravings for junk food, as very sweet foods often leave us wanting more of them? Well, there's a couple ways you can approach this. I mean, like, one is you could connect this to a cultivation of generating loving kindness for oneself and goodwill towards oneself, and make this a way that you exercise that, like, in a kind, loving, and non-judgmental way. So there is this part of you that wishes well for Eleanor and future Eleanor, and on some level we know that eating certain foods, our relationship to eating certain foods, is not the best for us. And so, rehearse this in your mind and operationalize this as a way that indeed you can, not just in thought, not just in meditation, but indeed in action, you can practice loving kindness for Eleanor and future Eleanor by not doing that. And so instead of thinking this as sort of me and mine and a personal failing or something, one's, again, relaxing this kind of tight framing of the self and personality view. And instead it just becomes this opportunity where you have a choice to do something kind and beneficial for yourself as an act of love and as an act of kindness. So that's one way you can approach it. And another way to kind of soften practices around things like this, especially food, which is such a central part of being. So food habits are difficult to manage and change. So maybe not go for a complete binary of never eating junk food. Use something like an 80-20 rule. So like if you can encourage yourself out of kindness and love for future Eleanor to make the right choice 80% of the time, and acknowledge that you might fail 20% of the time, then it might feel a little less forced or brittle. And that might be a way to hack your way around some sort of tight binary success fail kind of mentality. One other sort of suggestion around habit change like this is this could be one area of your life where you're practicing developing restraint and relinquishment and connecting with the joy of not being a slave. So it's like every time that you successfully honor this faith that you have that not doing certain things is in your benefit, you feel a little personal victory. You feel a little sense of freedom. You feel what I call the joy of renunciation. And you develop a little sense of nobility, or an enhanced kind of measure that you can trust yourself, that you're not just a slave to impulses and desire. And so this particular issue could be a very discreet place that you want to practice that in your life, to connect with that. So in some sense, it's not just about you and your ability to eat or not eat junk food. There's an extra opportunity there of using something like that to learn how to cultivate various aspects of mind. It's actually kind of a common practice in the rainy season, which is a period of refocusing practice, I guess you could say. I've seen in the English language in non-Buddhist countries that trying to sort of turn the vasa, or the rainy season, Buddhist practices as kind of like Buddhist Lent. And I think one of the reasons why they seized upon that is because there is something in Thai culture, and I assume other Buddhist cultures, of making a special determination to either keep precepts or to renounce something. I've heard stories of people that don't keep the fifth precept very well, and come pansa or vasa, the rainy season, they make a determination to maybe keep the fifth precept and refrain from drinking alcohol for the whole of the rainy season as a spiritual practice. And in the monastery, sometimes monks will make a determination. I've seen many times monks make a determination not to eat dessert for the vasa or something. Thinking, well, this is not really an essential food for me, and I'm just gonna forgo the pleasure of desserts for 3 months in order to develop renunciation, restraint, self-control. Hi, Jeannie. I did answer Kevin's question yesterday, so you could go back and find that in the description for yesterday. There should be a link that jumps you right to that point. But in short, I said, don't worry about it too much. Oh, what's going on here? Good morning, Abby. Ajahn, are there any Theravada Buddhist monasteries for women in the USA? I know there is one here in Australia and the UK. Thank you. Yes, there are several. I don't know how many, but I would think maybe almost 10 now. The ones I know of best are the Aloka Vihara in Placerville, California, and I'm kind of blanking on the names right now. Ayatata Aloka has a community that's in the Santa Rosa area of California. I'm really sorry, I can't think of the name right now. Maybe somebody can put it in the chat for me. So there's a Bhikkhuni community in Canada, Sati Sarania, which is just outside of Perth, Ontario. And several others. But so, the answer to your question is yes. And I think if you search online, you can find pointers to those communities and their websites. Okay, folks, don't think of the white bear. Good morning, Daniel. Hello, how does one help their parents become more mindful, more present, without coming across as intrusive, rude, or dictating? Thank you so much. Well, my standard response for everybody that is inspired to change their friends, their parents, their partner, is you should lead by example. Impress them. Arouse faith in them that mindfulness here, but really any kind of skillful or positive quality that you would wish out of loving kindness for them to enjoy the benefits of, see if you yourself can develop that quality to such a brilliance and strength that if they have eyes to see, they will be inspired to inquire about that. And I think that's the right course. Merely trying to convince them is oftentimes a bit difficult. And if you sense an openness and there is the relationship is such, and you think they might have an open mind or already have sufficient faith, then you can approach it more directly. But my standard answer is to be cautious about trying to change others, and really try to lead by example and inspire others. And then if they have the karma and they have the eyes to see, then maybe they will be inspired, and the conditions for them changing in positive ways that you've benefited from will spread to them. There's a wonderful story of Ajahn Sudanto coming back to visit his family and his sister after his maybe it was his initial 10 years or so in Thailand before he had a chance to come visit his family in America. I can't remember the exact time frame, but his sister, who I know fairly well, and visit on a regular basis, she developed a meditation practice inspired by her brother, Lumpur Sumedho. She saw when he came back from practicing with Lumpur Cha in Thailand for many years, something in him was different in a positive way. And I can't remember exactly how she put it, but the story I heard from Lumpur and from her was she noticed, like, wow, you've changed for the better. This, whatever you're doing, it's having real results. And in particular, she was interested for him to teach her about meditation. And she was quite a devout Christian. In fact, I think even at the time a Catholic practitioner. And I think in a great act of sensitivity, rather than trying to hammer her with Buddhist teachings, he encouraged her to look to Christian contemplative traditions. And indeed, she did that and developed, I think, a very strong and meaningful sort of practice of meditation, and yet counts her brother, Ajahn Sumedho, as one of her teachers. So, and she's a lovely person. So that's a very profound and real world example of that principle of transforming yourself, and it might just inspire those that you love. And this, while returning to this theme of self-reliance, like, well, it is our responsibility to develop this practice. It is not a selfish endeavor. It inevitably will have benefits for others in the world, including the ones that we love and that are close to us. But karma is a very difficult and confusing kind of thing. So it's not just going to magically make everybody's life better in the way that you would wish for or want, but if they have eyes to see and sufficient karma to be inspired and impressed, then your good practice and the blessings you generate in your life might just act as a very important catalyst in their own process. And I think it rounds out our motivational dimension of practice to be thinking of others. Don't just meditate for yourself, I guess you could say, to put it. It is nice to have a transpersonal motivational structure for your practice. Even if the primary focus is on sorting yourself out, as I put it yesterday, cleaning your own house first. Okay, well, I'm going to have to get going. I see I'm way behind, but there's a lot of nice stuff there in the comments, in the chat room, I should say. I want to second this recommendation that you have here, Jay, to Eleanor, for Atomic Habits by James Clear. So I've listened to some interviews, and then recently was gifted his book, and I like that a lot. Okay, well, I apologize for everyone else's questions. I'm going to have to skip over. So have a lovely day, everyone. And I will see you tomorrow for our Friday morning coffee time. Just another plug and reminder for the month of August. Your homework, if you will. Whatever you've been finding useful in these daily morning coffee times, see if you can figure out how you're going to honor that and make some commitment to yourself for the days I won't be here. So every day but Monday. And I'll see you tomorrow and then again on Monday. So be well, friends.